Hello and welcome to Tell Us Your Effin' Story, a podcast by franchisors for franchisors that goes behind the scenes with some of the most interesting characters in the Australian franchising sector. I'm your host, Bruce McFarlane, with my co-host, John Sully, and today we're speaking with Rori Kokken, the CEO of BDC Franchise Recruitment. So Rory spent nearly 20 years working in franchise sales and development in family businesses and some of the largest franchise brands in the country.
Righto, Rory. Tell us your fucking story.
John, it's not fucking story, it's franchise story.
Sorry,
we'll get
Bruce.
that set up right from the start.
All
So Rory, we're going to go right back. We'll stay out of franchising for the minute.
Yep.
So growing up, where did you grow up, and tell us a little bit about your early days.
I am one of 4 kids, one boy who's the prodigy and 3 sisters. My dad came out from Ireland on a boat when he was 10 and grew up in Glen Iris in Melbourne.
And what was your early interest as a kid? So what did you like to do?
I think just hang out with Dad, building around the house, hanging out with my siblings, friends.
Pretty sporty?
Pretty sporty, but my parents owned family businesses from a very young age. So I was doing the cash register at the age of 10 and did it better than the staff.
Cool.
So Mum would pick us up from school. We owned a chocolate shop. We owned a toy shop. We owned lots of different. So I would be
Working
doing
in the business?
registers.
Your dad's Irish?
Yeah,
But that's your married. What's your maiden name?
McDonald.
Yes, McDonald.
My name is Rory Siobhan McDonald.
Oh, my God.
Couldn't be more Irish if you tried.
Fucking hell. No, that's good.
Yeah.
And what about school? How was school for you?
School, I was just a consistent player. I was never a high achiever at school. I went to Corowa in Glen Iris and then changed over to Canterbury Girls. Finished school and had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. So I started a teaching degree and dropped out.
Did you? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, but you were working in the family businesses all that time from 10 sort of onwards.
Yeah.
Were they all still
No, so
happening all through that?
Yeah, so my dad owned a business called the Lost Forest, which was a forest, like we had moving trees and toys hanging. So we ran kids' birthday parties. So I reckon from the age of 12, I'd work weekends running kids' birthday parties.
Wow.
With a magic trapdoor and taking kids through a magical experience.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
I didn't know that either. I like this. This is cool. Very cool.
So what other businesses, besides, I know we'll get into the franchising ones a bit later, but what other sorts of businesses did your dad have that you worked in?
What did we work in? Well, back in the 80s, he owned a franchise called Vigor. So that had 42 fitness clubs.
Yep.
So that was pre-me.
Yep.
I remember that all going pear-shaped because we had a boat and he sold it.
So he was because that's before the franchising code in the 80s. So the franchising in Australia in the 80s was like McDonald's just came out in the 70s and there weren't many franchise systems around that time. So he's pretty early days franchising.
Yeah. So him and his brother started the fitness clubs in Bendigo.
Yep.
And then it just grew from there. So they got to 42. And there was another brand called Life. I can't remember the other brand, but it was when memberships were paid in full.
Mm.
So this other gym went down and it just took the entire industry down because now there's direct debit. Back then, people just stopped buying gym memberships.
Yeah.
So very quickly, that was a journey.
So how old was your dad? Well, this was in the 80s, so like when? So how old's your dad now?
74? No, 76.
Yeah, okay. Right, so he's not that old. Wasn't that old when all that was happening.
No, he would have been mid-30s
And
when he
even
was doing it.
the Lost Trees, what was it called?
The Lost Forest.
Lost Forest?
That was one out of the States.
But that's sort of ahead of its time, wasn't it? There wouldn't have been much around at that time.
No.
So he's a goer.
He owned the Bendigo pub and the Castlemaine motel.
Oh, I like this father a bit, wasn't it?
He actually got out of that because young family, it's just everyone wanted you to have a drink with them every night. I was like, that didn't work. So
toxic.
So we bought the motel and then we moved to Melbourne.
Wow. God, there's a bit going on there. And so are you the youngest of the 3 sisters?
No. So I am my older sister Lisa,
Yeah.
then Liam, the prodigy child. Then
How did he get to be the prodigy child? For
I don't
God's
know.
sake.
I don't know. He even talks now. Mum still
Oh, really?
glares at it. No, he'll kill me for saying that.
No, he deserves it.
He's a good boy. No, so then I'm the third child, and then
Yep.
I've got a younger sister.
Yeah, okay.
And so then when you're starting in the workforce, you dropped out of the teaching, that wasn't the thing for you. So then Fernwood your dad was a franchisee this time, so he's been a franchisor and now he's a franchisee, got a few different clubs, and start working in the business.
So first I worked at Taco Bill's, which is another franchise,
Mm-hmm.
just part-time. But then so I worked at Fernwood. Dad was a pretty tough boss, so I went in at reception. At Hawthorn. We first owned Hawthorn, and then I went into sales. And interesting because back then I was actually quite shy. I was actually quite a shy kid growing up, but got into sales, and I think genuinely I just liked helping people. So I don't think I was naturally a salesperson. I just loved
You're genuine.
meeting people and helping them achieve their goals. So I got into sales, and then I got to be assistant manager, but I was too nice to everyone, so I got demoted.
By your dad.
How long did you last?
I reckon it was about a month. He's like, nah, you're not focused on targets. You're too nice to everybody. Like, back down. So I went back down. But
Love
it
you.
did teach me a lot. I'll give him that. So then I was managing Hawthorn. Then we owned. What Dad would do was buy the clubs that weren't doing well in Fernwood. So he did all their leasing, but the Hawthorn franchise partner wasn't a good partner, so we took that one. Then we took Wollongong. Then we took one in Canberra, and then we built the one in Preston in Melbourne, and then the one in Belconnen in ACT.
ACT, yeah.
And then we took over another one in Sydney. So in the end, we had 6 of them.
And there was a strategy build and hold or build and flick?
It was hold. He just took the failing one, so he didn't have to pay the premiums for them. He'd just jump in and take those. But interesting back then, like we had to do a pre-sale of 1,000 members before we opened the doors at Preston. So when we did that, that was faxing all the local businesses. I'd stand in the Northland Shopping Centre every day handing out leaflets. And we got to 832 members
Right.
pre-opening. So not quite the 1,000, but we got pretty close.
Wow, that's impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, we did. And it was interesting there too. No one wanted to pay up. And it was a very Muslim community. Mm-hmm. So Dad couldn't go into that business. Direct debit did really well there. Where Hawthorn, we had to transition from paid in full to direct debit as the industry changed.
Right. So how many stores did they have as a chain at that point when you guys had 6?
Maybe 40 odd. I'm not sure. I don't actually remember.
Yeah, right.
But we had the 6.
Okay.
And then things got a bit tough there. So your dad's, as a typical entrepreneur, he's ridden the highs and the lows.
Yep.
And Fernwood it was a good one, and then it turned out to be not so great.
Yeah, Fernwood was an incredible business for us. Only challenge with 6 is we had to build our own head office. So then we had, our own admin team, our own support team. So you were spending probably from the 4th location, you were spending the profit out of one of them on a full head office. But it was a really good business, and then Dad wanted to start a health farm. So he found this location it was called Fakala, which is Bulladella, northern New South Wales, up past Newcastle, and started this health farm, which then started eating all the profits of the fitness clubs.
As in go and live there, lose weight, health farm?
Yeah, like a retreat like Eden is now, or Gwyngarna. And so you'd go there for 3 days or 5 days or 7. You'd do yoga. So it was, again, a bit ahead of his time. But it was a lot of work, and that was before social media was as strong as it is now.
How did that go?
Yeah.
End game?
We ended up handing it back because if I go there, Dad ended up in a really big dispute with Fernwood.
Right, okay.
And because that was sapping a lot of our profits.
Yeah.
Then it got, and this I suppose is my gripe with franchising, which I'll go into later, but it just got heated and ugly rather than methodical and structured in their navigating.
It's probably a learning for you, though, isn't it? Because you're obviously representing brands at the moment and seeing it from, one, you're a franchisee, and 2, your dad, and there's strong personalities on both sides of the equation. Your dad, not probably like a lot of franchisees who are smaller, your dad had run big businesses himself, so he wanted to have a fight.
Yep. And they fought, and then they were fighting in 3 different states. So it just became this massive, very uncomfortable legal battle. And I think in the end, Mum said, we've just got to let it go. So they took back the locations.
Mm-hmm. Must have been a good franchisee, though, if he's buying 6, turning them around.
Yep.
So what was he doing to turn them around?
Just nothing, not rocket science. We just went in, we'd look after the members, we'd do some local marketing, we'd focus on sales.
No, as in follow the system.
Follow the system.
No.
Yep.
Fuck.
Follow the system. Look after people.
It is interesting you're saying about the multi-unit thing, because I know, having just been to the US, and multi-unit's massive over there, and in Australia it's not necessarily as big. And what you said there is right. I know I've got a couple of clients that they get to a point where they can run 2 or 3 quite successfully, but once they get to 4 or 5 or whatever the number is, then they have to put their own team around it. It's a very different business model, and whether or not, the market here can support those big franchisee groups in networks. And I know, so did you see that there was things that you could have learnt there that, now you're in sales again, and you're selling to people that are having multi-unit, that are going, and franchisors that are considering it. Yep. What would you recommend that different things happen with multi-unit?
I'm a big believer in multi, and I think if I talk from when I get to that journey, but the franchise inquiry now is a different lead, and there are a lot of people coming in as an inquiry that want multi, but it's about being strategic about your own multi. You're an entrepreneurial franchise partner. So in your own business plan within the organisation, you've got to know where your pain points are. You've got to know when you've got to bring that team in yourself to support your managers in the locations.
Yeah, exactly. Does this, not to jump ahead, but does Oracle identify multi franchisee?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, maybe it would. We can talk about that. So when you were doing for yourself, you're opening sites and stuff like that, and then now you're looking at recruiting franchisees. Like, what are the things? The changes have been the science behind selection of franchisees. How have you found that? John's mentioned Oracle that you're using.
I think people in franchising now take the selection of franchise partners so much with such, I can't think of my wording, with such a clearer focus than we did before. So, if I jump, do you want me to jump to my next part of my career? But, I've worked for brands that it's just sell. That, there is some methodology in some brands to just sell, and then, it's the ramifications thereafter that are just ugly.
Yeah.
So it is working with franchise brands that want to take the time to recruit.
Yeah. Well, no, so so some of the brands you've worked with that were iconic brands in Australia, they've grown rapidly. So Noodlebox, Otondo, Schnitz, Salts of the Earth, F45. So all of them are others as well, but obviously there are some that I know of, and that they all grew quickly.
Yep.
With you driving sales in at times, and all got the wobbles a little bit at different times because of different things that have happened along the journey. And so, tell us a little bit, right back, Noodlebox.
When did you start doing that? And just before you answer that, so
multiple questions.
You're a prolific breeder. You've got 20 odd kids or something as well, haven't you?
Four. John, 4.
Just, it's my podcast. So it's our podcast.
You like to exaggerate. I have
Just
4 daughters.
So just putting that in that little middle bit. So all the Fernwood stuff went on for a few years. You were still working in there.
So with Fernwood, we had 6 clubs. I ended up being the general manager of all 6 of them.
Right.
This is another story about my brother.
Yeah.
I probably got to the top, and that was the hardest thing in the fitness industry. It's quite a capped industry of where you can go from there unless you become an owner. And I suppose it was the next step, or more money, or where to go. And Dad said no, so I resigned. And my brother's going to kill me if he listens to this.
No, can I start taking notes on this?
You don't need to, it's recorded.
But Dad, again, I suppose this goes to the cultural male-female thing, agreed to pay Liam more money to come and work and run the fitness club, so I moved on.
Fuck that.
It's just a little bit of a stab in my heart, can you tell?
Yeah.
But again, so then I went to Fitness First. So I worked with Fitness First for a number of years, who were a very methodical, systemised sales business. And I have to say, just from a sales background, I had to do 30 contacts, 12 appointments, 6 presentations, 4 sales and 12 referrals every day to hold my job there.
Wow. So it's pretty clear.
But it taught me a lot. And I think in any of these journeys, it was little bits from Dad that taught me so much about discipline and sales and budgets and targets. And then, with Fitness First, it was really about executing it all too.
Yeah.
But I was done with the fitness industry. So essentially when I left out, I was probably done with the fitness industry. So I went and worked for Fitness First. I think I was there a year and I was like, I'm done.
Were the kids started at that point? No.
No.
Okay, right.
No, I was 24.
Oh, okay. So baby. Yeah.
Baby. And I was at a barbecue with my uncle and he introduced me to a guy by the name of Sergio Alderuccio,
Yep.
who owned Franchise Developments.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we just clicked, so I went and started working for him.
Selling.
Yep. Just out of nowhere. Like I'd never recruited franchise partners. It was just a...
And that's when all this started, what we were just talking about with Noodlebox. And,
Yeah. So Noodlebox was one of the clients you worked for under the banner of Franchise Developments.
Yeah. So Franchise Developments wrote franchise programs.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had a small sales team that sold. So I took Noodlebox on. And I'd say, and I'll say it in any of my brands, I had a really good relationship with the directors. They were there, like I was their partner.
Yeah, and Josh and Dave were pretty entrepreneurial guys, and they'd had other businesses and
very
so they had the bars and
they had the money to market too.
Yeah.
So every Saturday we would put $1,000 ad in the Age. That's how we marketed them.
Yeah.
Show my age.
Yeah, I remember those ads.
So every Saturday there'd be the $1,000 ad, and every Monday morning I'd get all my leads.
Yeah.
I did a lot of the development through South Australia, so I'd ring them, and then every Thursday I'd fly to South Australia, and I'd do back-to-back face-to-face interviews for 10 hours. I'd fly home and I'd do it all again every week.
Yeah, great. That's pretty crappy. How old were they, sorry, not how old, but how many stores did they have at that point when you started?
They had 9.
Right.
What'd you
we
get
grew
to?
50.
Yeah, and Queensland was a good market for you as well. Yep.
Yeah, they kept going then.
Yep.
Are they still around now?
Yep.
Box?
No,
They own Concept 8.
Right.
So Concept 8
is a...
So they've got 8 brands now under the banner. But Noodlebox itself is, like I said, Queensland was a really good market. It was probably half their sites ended up being up in Queensland. But yeah, so that was you've got Sergio, who'd been in the franchising space for a long time. I think Rod had left by that stage. Was Rod?
Rod had left.
Yeah.
So Kevin was there.
It's there. Yep.
And then his brother Robert did all the legals. So it was a really good, tiny little ship.
Good group. And who else? Then you went to...
I just did Noodlebox with them.
Right.
And then I ended up out my own. So I just worked for a number of smaller brands.
Well, Hotondo's not so you did some stuff for them?
No, so after I had...
Oh, that was for the kids.
No, then I actually worked for Asia Pacific Building Operations. So I got out of franchising for a bit.
Yep.
And did a lot of setup and structural stuff for them. And then I had my first daughter.
Mm-hmm.
No, sorry. I went to Hotondo first, and I worked with Hotondo and fell pregnant while I was there.
And that was a sales role as well?
Yeah, franchising.
So you've gone from selling, you've been in fitness to food, and now...
Which was really different again,
Yeah,
Hotondo.
building, yeah.
Because we were approaching existing builders to rebrand.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
How'd that go?
It was hard. We probably did... Can't even remember what we did in that time. Maybe 10 of them. I wasn't there that long, so then I had my first daughter, and I didn't go back.
Well, are they a big group, Hotondo?
Yeah,
are they international?
No, Australian.
Just Australian.
But they've been around a really long time, so the sons now run it.
Right. Okay.
Like the father started it, and the sons now run it.
And so, then left there. Another
Had
daughter.
my daughter.
Yeah.
I had my first daughter.
Right.
And thought I wanted to be a stay-at-home mum.
Yeah.
And I spent all my time at Chadstone. And it was when Emmy was about 6 months old that I saw Schnitz, which was the third Schnitz that opened. I don't know. And I thought I don't want to go back to corporate work. I want to be able to work around her. So I rang Andrew. And I started working for him straight away.
And that was only quite early on in their piece too, was it?
That was
the third.
Yeah, so they had Richmond, one other, and then Chadstone was their game changer for brand recognition.
Yeah, okay.
And you are, so I think it was the fastest growing franchise maybe 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
So, yeah, rapid growth.
Yeah.
Crazy entrepreneurial family running the business,
Yeah.
lots of things happening all at the time. So, what was some of the great things of being a really fast-paced?
Well, I was the third person in the organisation. So myself, Bruno and Andrew did everything at the start. But I think what I loved about that role was I did focus on recruiting the right franchise partners. I was always about so I didn't have any testing tool. I think we did DISC, but I didn't have anything like I have now. But I was very big on bringing the right people into the brand. But I also, in that time, built the admin team, legal team, training team. I ended up in there. So I started as a consultant and I ended up in.
Right, employed by.
Had a second daughter. Had a third daughter.
Keep going.
No, it's the part I had, is it? Yes. And that's probably when the job got a bit big.
Right.
Balancing
I had
family.
3 kids under 3.5.
Yep.
In saying that, Andrew was always really respectful. So even back in that time, I worked from home because he just knew the job would get done.
Yeah, you were still growing rapidly.
We were growing rapidly.
Yeah.
So how do you think you went selecting franchisees during that period? I
think I did a really good job.
Get most of them right?
Yep. Look, 10% are never going to be right no matter what you do.
Yeah.
But I think I'm a very honest person and I was very big about bringing the right people into brand.
They were quite expensive to get into, weren't they? So they're a different type of
they weren't at
franchisee, right?
So the challenge that they had was we were only $550 when I started, but design elements got bigger. Then they went from being like Chadstone, which was a food court shop, into a big restaurant shop. Yeah. So then some of them were up near $1 million, 1.2.
Millions, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's a different type of. I mean, I've never sold anything like that. Michelle's were a fair bit cheaper than that, and the famous fish stuff and a couple of others. But that is you're talking a different league of franchisee, really, aren't you?
You are, and they're the people again. I'll say that started, which was ex-Subway franchise partner that had 9 Subways.
Yeah.
And he's still in the brand, owns multiple. Ex-Boost Juice franchise partner, again, owns multiple. So you're dealing with a different calibre of franchisee once they see a really strong brand.
It's always a good sign, though, isn't it, when you're getting multiple franchisees?
Yeah.
Very good sign.
And what were some of the growing pains that you had through there, with such fast growth and, big dollars coming to open sites?
One thing we had right there was we were like a family. I'd have to say that. So when it was hard, like we all just dug our heels in and got it done. We opened 9 in 8 weeks just before Christmas one year. The training team were it was chaos. But the issues are that you're just growing so rapidly that I don't think we were watching cash flow strong enough. Training costs blew out. There was some just lack of structure in getting them open. Cost blew out.
Product was always good.
Product was always incredible.
Chips were very good. Still are.
And then I'll give Roman, who's the dad, he was always on the product.
Right.
He was always very big on his product.
Yeah. How many have they got now?
70 something.
Right. Yeah, okay. It's good
business.
So
brand was good. Andrew was really big on, ensuring the brand was there and consistent and, they had a place in the market, saw a gap, so it was great. And you got to execute on that growth strategy that they put together. So that would have been exciting.
And at what stage did you meet this Dave Lindsay donkey?
Was probably next.
Was that next?
That's next, I reckon.
Okay. Straight after that. But was there a 4th child in there anywhere?
No.
Okay. Sorry,
So
I just wanted
I met Dave. So I think that's the way I met Andrew. I've never really gone for a job in franchising. I've always just met people along my way. So Salts of the Earth was in Hampton Street, where we lived, and I liked I like the health and wellbeing sector. So it grabbed me, and I think one Friday afternoon I rang him and he answered the phone, and his recruiter had just left. So I started working with Dave to grow Salts of the Earth.
Did you go and use Salts of the Earth?
Yeah.
before you spoke to him?
No. I don't have to do that, do I?
Because he told us when he first started, his first sign he put in the window, what was he had black plastic on it, or he'd painted something on the window. That was his quality sign. That's all he could afford. I was just wondering if that was the shop that you
No, that was Moonee Ponds.
That was
was
Moonee
it?
So
Ponds.
then his second store was the one.
Hampton, which is still there now.
Yeah.
Um,
So how did you? So when you called Dave, did he just have the 2 stores?
no, about 10 or 12, I think, when I started. But him and Kath were just doing it on their own.
Yeah.
So I went and met them in Albert Park, and I started working with them.
How'd that go? You grew it from 9 or 10.
It's in my brain now. Until that, I think we got to 26 while I was there.
Yep.
So I worked 2 days a week, gave me the flexibility with the kids, and then I got pregnant again.
We really should be interviewing your husband after this.
But there's no more.
Right. Yeah, okay.
Yep. So you've out of food and back into the sort of health and well-being. So you like that space, and what were some of the good things about growing a health brand in a new market? There was nothing else like it.
Yeah, I think it's franchising in general. I just think you're working with people that are buying into the brand for their reasons, but you're helping people change their lives. So I think I was trying to think about the other day, what I love about what I do is some people will not go and open their own business. Well, a lot of people won't. It's too hard. But buying into a franchise gives them this ability to run their own business, but with support. Like they're working for themselves, not by themselves. So some of the people we sold to had their own skin conditions. Some were entrepreneurial. Some people just loved the brand. Some people wanted it because it was new and up and coming.
But you had to explain it to people because it was a new idea. Like it was.
Most people that came in that kind of industry are someone that loves the brand.
Yep. So they'd tried it, knew someone who tried it, thought this is going to work. Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Or had a reason.
So the people that are in it because they love the health benefits of it, were they harder to bring on the business journey side of things? So did you get involved in that, or was it more just you had to bring them in? That was
No, I just bring them in, and then I'd hand them over to the training team, the marketing team, induction team.
So the fact that what did he get? What was the award that he got? Australia's number one?
Emerging franchisor or young
next
gen.
Next gen. So how do you win that? So what was he doing right? And then he got second globally. What was he doing right to get that, do you think? Or is it just full of shit? Is it
As you would know, which has tested me at times with David Lindsay, is he's very methodical.
Yes.
He's very systemised. He doesn't change his path. So he was very true to his brand. He didn't deviate. He just, no one could take him out of his path, which is where he was going.
Yeah.
He saw strong product. He saw supporting product. He made the business model work.
So they're all positives.
Yep.
Yeah.
Also became a bit of a negative later on at times, which we've talked to Dave about as well. So, you saw that bloody mindedness of going down a path didn't have the flexibility, and some of the franchisees that was a bit tough.
In every franchise, I think it's the hardest thing is the franchisor's mindset and clarity on their brand and lack of deviation sometimes versus the partnership that comes in wanting an element of deviate. And it's when it clashes. It's always when it clashes or there's lack of listening or...
Yeah. So your dad as a franchisee not going so well, and then Dave working closely with Dave as a franchisor, and a couple of people weren't on the same journey as Dave, and weren't... And
he had business partners that came in and it was hard. Like I was there then when, they're trying to redirect the business and that's not what we were doing.
Yeah.
So it's always conflict, right?
So people came in and wanted to change what was already working.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, they'd invested the money into the brand and then, they want the opinion and...
Yeah.
So franchisees. And I guess also, you've seen business in a business relationship, you now see Dave's got business partners. You're not one of the owners, but that wasn't smooth sailing either. And then you stayed after Dave left in the brand. So how did that,
It was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard because their purpose, or one of the guys' wives ended up forced in to run it, and she didn't want to, and she didn't have the skill set to do it. It just became a very ugly place. Very conflicting, and very, every time you're trying to meet on a positive front, So I didn't really sell much after that.
Yeah. And then we had another baby.
Another baby.
And then you got back into fitness.
Got back into fitness. I had another baby, plus had to homeschool 4 kids under 6, which was interesting.
Yeah.
But what was it? No,
F45
was
that was
first.
just a bit before the pandemic, yeah.
Yeah. So F45 brought me on. They were bringing in a new brand, which was a seniors brand and a kids brand. So I was brought in to grow that within their existing organisation, which we did. We sold a heap of them, but they kept the hardest thing for them, and I think it was in their growth path of obviously what they're ultimately trying to achieve. A lot of franchisees were sceptical about taking it on. So we had an okay uptake, but it never launched.
So you're selling new ideas to existing franchisees?
So, okay, because most of those gyms during the day are dead. Was that the point?
No, it was to build the franchise, to make it bigger. So They were bringing in a seniors program.
Yeah.
And a kids program, so a teenager program.
Right.
So that was growing the brand for them to actually get it, because obviously revenue was dropping a bit. They were trying to build. So it was another franchise agreement.
Yeah.
A bit like FS8 that they've brought out too.
Oh, okay.
But it didn't work in the end. So we did it. We did all the selling. I think we sold about 200 of them.
Wow.
And then they canned it.
Why? Wasn't working.
I don't know.
Because that's what I never understood in that space, is that a fitness studio, is dead quite a fair few hours in the day, isn't it? So there's got to be something. Like, I would have thought seniors would be ideal.
So you're right. So the seniors was during the day.
Yeah.
Some of the kids programming was just before the other classes started.
Yeah.
But it was trying to create a whole new revenue stream, but they had to buy 2 new franchise agreements to do it.
Why would you do that? That's just a marketing thing to go and fill it.
They were just
That's probably why they stopped it. Sorry, I'll try.
No, it's fine. The franchise. So it's interesting, like, as a franchisor that also probably had the biggest growth of all the systems in F45 before you were there, and for the gyms, they opened hundreds of sites.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so,
what did they get to? They were in the 200-300s, were they?
Oh, it's more than that.
It's more than that.
Way more than that.
Was it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so you weren't in that. You weren't there, but you were dealing with the people that had to execute it on those.
They bought, and they were trying to sell them another franchise program.
Yeah.
So finished there, and then where?
Well, I'm going to just change track a little bit. So you obviously your husband was running a business at different times as well. So you were working when you had the kids, not in franchising, but sort of working the family business, which is also tough when you're trying to work in a family business that you're running with kids. So, how is that?
I think with 4, I've had 4 kids under 6.5. So I think it got to the point that it was hard to work. So I did bookwork, I did marketing, I did stuff for him for a period of time. And I thought that was what I wanted to do. I think there's an element as a mum sometimes, I want to do that. But I got really bored.
Yeah.
And probably lost part of my confidence. I think there was part of me that really yearned for that work life, but I just didn't know how to do both.
And I think it sounds like a lot of your successes in business, whether it be in your businesses your own or businesses you're working in, was in the sales. Like, you're very people focused, and like being the backroom person on the books and the ops stuff is probably
it's like, don't put baby in a corner, right?
Yeah.
Like
so I think that's right. And so obviously, getting into that franchise recruitment side of things again, allowed you to part of the personality that you enjoy to thrive.
I love talking to people. Yeah.
And so how's that? So back, so getting back into, you're balancing the kids, and the kids are a little bit older, so that's probably how it helped a little bit. But how did you enjoy the sales side again, but getting back into that?
I love it.
Yeah.
I do. I think, look, sales is always the 70-30, where 70% of it's highly frustrating because you're calling people that don't answer their phone, or there's so much of sales that are at that side, but when you speak to someone who's genuinely interested in what you do, and you take them on the journey to purchase a franchise, I don't know, you feel like you want to hold their hand as they open their front door, because they're changing their lives. They've taken a risk to move forward.
Yeah, it's a very cool experience.
It is really
very,
cool.
Very, very cool. Can I just get back to the baby brain for 1 minute? Because when I was thinking when you were talking, when we sold Michelle's and I didn't work for, and my twins were born then, and I didn't work for a couple of years, and Kath's like just kicked me out because I was just so annoying. I remember the first meeting I went to, and I was shitting myself. I was so, and I don't even know who it was with. It wasn't like it was the Lord Mayor or the Queen or anything. It wasn't anything crazy. And my brain just wasn't working.
No,
it just goes to mush.
Yeah.
I don't know how people can retire. You become a brain dead moron.
Yeah, so come and work with Bruce McFarlane, who's a lawyer, and Dave, who's methodical in his contracts. On your first day back at work, it was pretty scary.
Yeah, that puts you on the toes.
It's pretty scary.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
that's great.
I think you found that for lots of working mums, it's been, you've had lots of great jobs and stuff, and then looking after the kids, it's a very different thing to get, back into that business sense, and then to jump from mum to business owner to backwards and forwards on a daily basis now.
Yep. It's it is, but I think it is, and some days are harder than others. Some days are really hard because you don't know how to juggle it. You want to be present for your kids' sport, or you want to be at work, but I think I'm a better mum back working.
Yeah, better rounded person.
Yeah, and I feel like too the kids respect more because I say, well, you have to do that. I've got to go to work today. Or where before I think I just did stuff for them because I had the time. So they've really stepped up, and I want them. I've got 4 daughters.
Yeah.
So
you're the role model. So you work for multiple brands now. So you got 10 on the books, I think, at the moment, and from all sorts of different industries. Again, your food and your fitness and building and construction and stuff. So are you enjoying that mix of brands and working with emerging franchisors and larger systems?
Yeah, I think I love the diversity of what I do. I think I've got to a point I wouldn't want to work just one brand now. I do and I love talking to different franchisors. Like they've all got their skills and their strengths and weaknesses, and I can also guide them in some of that. But 10's probably a bit much at the moment. But it's good. I really like it.
So this is one thing I've been wanting to ask you is you've seen so many sides of franchisors, franchisees. You're selling. You've been in their head office, built teams, blah blah blah. You're in a perfect situation to be able to say, okay, I'll look at it another way. You're franchising Fiji Water.
Yep.
You're the franchisor. You're setting it up. What are the things that you know you need to do to make it work? I'll put you on the spot.
No, it's really, really simple. And you see the mistake all the time is look after your franchise partners.
Right.
And what I mean by that is it's not just about answering the phone every time they ask you to do something. That's not good management either. But it's about when they go from my hands, set the expectations, follow a process, follow through on your process, and then provide calculated, structured support. So you avoid that 15 phone calls a day that they start to become annoying to you. Like it just follow us. Like it's like we ask them to follow our system. It's like as a franchisor, follow a system. Support your franchise partners, and you'll actually have a really nice journey.
And for the ones that you've seen since you've been back into it, and you've worked with, obviously you're working with 10, but you've seen a lot more than 10.
Mm-hmm.
How many do you think are actually doing it the right way? And be honest.
Half.
Right, yeah.
And in part, I suppose it's a bit like when you become a parent. What you don't know, you don't know. So it'd be good, they're also trying to learn on their feet.
Yeah.
So it's giving them those foundations to know what to do, but to support them.
And are the half that are not doing it, are they not doing it because they don't know what to do, or are they trying to squeeze it for... Why are they not doing it?
There's two reasons. One is because they don't know what to do.
Yep.
But the second one is they're cash flow tight, so they don't have the money to put the correct resources on, so they try and do it all themselves.
Yep.
So some of it you can't always fix, but it's almost even setting up your corporate structure before you start and know that, okay, well, once we get to 5, that's the person we need to hire. Because your ops person, a strong ops person is going to help you so much more than hiring a PA or...
It's really that roadmap to 100.
It's a roadmap.
You can say, what does the roadmap to 100 look like? You got 3. But let's think about what it looks like when we get to 100.
Yeah.
And what are the milestones along the way? And you're right, some people go and employ a finance person, and that might be right, and some people who are a marketing person, and some people employ a trainer, depending on the product, and some people it's all about the product, and so it's all about innovation in the product. And so you're making your founder's trying to wear all those hats at the start.
And it's hard. So they're trying to do all these things that they don't know how they're doing, and they don't have the capital to put the next person on until they sell 2 more franchises. So it's not trying to have a go either. It's more about just being more structured in how you can deliver to your franchise partner, because they're business partners.
Yeah. I mean, that this is not a bloody sales pitch, but that's what we've got to come up as a clear, defined path for franchisors to, one, understand themselves and their abilities and what their sweet spot is and where they should be placed. And as you said, working out what's the most critical thing, what's the next personality type. I think Cooksy Man was talking about it where he was doing some work with a group and the head person had, X qualities or whatever. Every single person that he had employed was exactly the same as him.
Yeah, and that's what you don't want.
And that's what you don't. Exactly, that's not what you want. So mapping that out for people is really, really important.
Yep.
And that their own self-awareness. And leave your arrogance at the door if you can.
Yep.
That's what... Okay, so if you got Fiji Water up and running now, how do you explain all the stuff with Zoracle a bit? What is that working? Does it remove the guesswork and the fog up the glass and check for a heartbeat scenario that we all used to do back in the 2000s?
Zoracle confirms your thoughts, but it gives you clarification on the type of person you're bringing in. And what I like about it most is when you actually sit down with a franchisor and you do the full assessment on them and their team, and you talk about their struggles or their skill set and their challenges, and you build this blueprint. So when you're bringing potential franchise partners in, it just makes it easier.
Yep.
And more so, if there is a little bit of a low part in their profile, some of them are workable. So you know that then that's where the focus should be on their training. That's where you can help them. Well, that's where you can go, hang on, we saw that in their profile. They need a bit more of a cuddle at the start, but then they'll shine, or this person just needs to follow a book.
Yep.
So I think it just gives clarification to what you're doing.
And the barriers that you're seeing at the moment to finding people, to getting your stores open, how are you fixing that?
My only battle at the moment is finance.
Right.
So the leads are still there.
Yeah, I've got really strong leads.
Because I think, franchising, COVID was tough, and lots of the franchise fitness, food, a lot of them were shut or had to adapt and stuff. And I think a lot of the franchise brands did well during COVID. We were talking before we started on air that that was a good time for franchisors that were good, that looked after their franchise partners, and then they came out of COVID well. So you think that the flow on of that is that there's still good leads for some of the systems, and KX is one that you're working with at the moment. They're still getting really good inquiries, aren't they?
Yeah, we've got good leads, and we always focus on quality leads in our group. So we don't want masses of leads. We want quality, but in the quality, be it finance not approved or people worrying about finance, is a little bit of a hurdle at the moment.
Yep. I think that's right. I think it's always been an issue, but people are a little bit nervous. Interest rates have gone up, and then a couple of banks fall over in the States, and it makes the banks over here step back a bit.
And do you think that the franchisors as an industry are working well with the banks to try and get that remember at COVID we had that we got all the banks in, and they were talking about their lists and who's approved and up to 50% and all that stuff. They were quite critical 3 years ago of franchisors not having a good, strong relationship with multiple lenders. Do you think that's changing?
Yeah, so I'd say like Schnitz, part of the success with Schnitz is we had 50% accreditation. So it made recruitment, and it took the stress off the incoming franchise partner that it's not all off their house, or it's not all on their back to borrow the money. No, I would say people aren't working well with the banks, but I don't know if the banks are as forthcoming either. Because back then, we had banks knocking on our door.
Yeah.
To go, to do accreditation.
Yeah.
Where, like even KX, they're not accredited.
Yeah, it's a different environment now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the banks still say they want to get to know people, and get to know the franchisors, so they understand the system. So then when the franchisee comes to them, they actually understand the system. But whether or not the franchisors are investing the time, or you're right, probably the banks aren't either. A little bit. You're a franchisee again, so you've gone back in and
for a penny.
Yeah. So how's you got your first one open, second one's
both open.
Both open now.
It's funny. I always said I was never going to be like my dad, and I do love him, but I wasn't going to go on this franchising journey. But I've always had a passion for it. So last year, out of COVID, my husband was in construction and hated it. He's always been into extreme sport, running and Ironman and all this. And I was working with Recovery Lab, and he just one Sunday said, I want to own them. So we redirected. So we ended up taking over an existing one that wasn't doing that well.
Sounds like your dad again.
Sounds like my dad. But I wasn't afraid of it because
Yeah.
I thought, well, you can get in cheaper and we can turn it.
Yeah.
And again, not rocket science. Went in, did a mini reno, lots of love and attention, focus on sales and targets, and it's turned very quickly. And then last week we opened our second location in Hampton.
New build.
It's flying.
Yeah.
I've had
Good
hundreds
start.
and hundreds of people through.
Really?
Yep.
So how did you get that interest? How were you promoting that?
So they run a 8-week marketing campaign.
Yep.
With an outsourced agency, plus just local community. Look, we've opened in an area that loves exercising, loves coffee, loves booze, and loves looking after themselves.
Right.
Like it's a very, it's a good area for that, for what we do.
Right.
But we topped all.
Where was it? Sorry, Hampton, did you say?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Was it last Sunday? We had 108 people through the door.
Doing what?
Sauna, ice
Right.
bath. You gonna do an ice bath?
I've never
Can we do a
done that.
podcast with John in an ice bath?
Don't
Jumping
want it.
from the sauna to the ice bath.
I'll wear a mankini doing that too. Imagine that.
And yeah, that's, again, love it. Like, for Dan, he's owned his own businesses and didn't love writing documents and systems and processes, and he loves just following what's there. He jumps into Op Central, he jumps into the digital stack.
It's really interesting,
It's
isn't it? The
there.
franchising model, he's entrepreneurial,
Yep.
but he likes following a system. So it's a perfect mix, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's going to have a crack. You've got 2 already.
He wants 5.
Yeah.
Like, that's the goals, that entrepreneur.
Did you do his Oracle profile on your husband?
I did it on me.
You needed to do it on your husband.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like to see that.
Yeah, and just, again, it's following a franchise system,
Yeah.
and it works.
So saunas,
Ice
ice baths, what else?
Compression boots,
Right. What's that for?
leg recovery
Right.
from marathon running.
Okay.
No, just your legs.
Right.
Cycling.
Cycling.
Complex, which is a targeted muscle recovery, which is like TENS machine
Yeah.
for women. And New Calm, which is a meditative tool out of the States
Right.
that was built for the military with PTSD. So it's a 20 to 30 minute, very deep meditation that taps into your parasympathetic nervous system.
Right. And you sit in a dark room
So
or
yeah,
something
so
like
a room, recliner chair, weighted blanket, sound, noise cancelling headphones, and you go on this this journey.
Have you done it?
Yep, it's amazing.
Is it really cool?
Yep.
Wow.
Well,
Might have to book you in.
I might get Kath to do that. Can we delete that?
So we're nearly out of time, but thank you very much for telling us your story. But was any tips? I know we went to some tips for franchisors. Was there anything else that you think, now you're a franchisee again, you're also selling for franchisors. Is there anything else you could think as a tip for franchisors?
I was going to say, if you're thinking about buying a franchise and it's your dream boat, I'd say do it, because I think life is about taking the risk and doing what you want. So, if you're hesitating, I think you should jump in, because it is nerve-wracking going and buying a franchise. And again, you're in a relationship with someone. You're in a marriage as such, in a partnership. But if you're thinking about it, I would do it. Do your research and do it. Franchisors, I just think sometimes you get so caught up in running your franchise that you forget that franchisees are people too, trying to do their best. So it's just sometimes drop it down, have a listen, and
get back to basics, back to the relationship.
Yeah, build a relationship, and you'll have a really good journey in franchising.
Yeah, it's good.
Is that all right?
It's very good.
Do I pass?
Yes. Yes, you did well. That was really cool. That was very good. You got a lot of experience in there. It's excellent.
Thanks for telling us your effing story.
Effing story.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Rory.